We welcome Michael Singh into room 442, our Toronto FC insider here at the Parleh. Mikey's working on a ton of content right now, by the way, so please stay tuned to all our channels the next couple of weeks. There's a lot coming down. As TFC enjoy an international break, so to speak. They're still training, of course, but some players are away. So it's time maybe for a reset on what's been a pretty tumultuous season so far. Where would you say that the state of affairs are right now with Toronto FC?
Yeah, this was the point I think everybody was sort of waiting for. This reevaluation period, because the first half of the season, we know it was always going to be a grind. When you look at the way the roster is constructed, with how many young players are getting minutes, the moves that preceded sort of the start of the season, we knew that TFC were sort of playing with house money. So positionally, the way they find themselves, James, they're last in the Eastern Conference isn't great. But what is great is they're 3 points out of a playoff spot in the Eastern Conference. And we know who's around the corner. Reinforcements are here in a couple weeks. Lorenzo Insigne will be here in a couple of weeks. And we know that, hey, this is a team that potentially could get hot down the stretch. So positionally, they're fine with where they are. But I also get the sense that they're not as far along as they would like to be. From a footballing perspective, at least, the way that they've been playing. We saw beginning of the season, they had a positive stretch, and they seem to regress. It's not been kind of the upward trajectory that they were kind of hoping for. So I think some bigger questions need to be answered, more so about the future of some of these players, like goalkeeping and net. Alex Bono, Quentin Westberg, are these guys the answer, or do they have to go out maybe next offseason and address that? Alejandro Pozuelo, Jonathan Osorio, guys like that. There's a lot of moving parts right now, I think, with this team.
There's so many rumors. I mean, 4-7-3, it's not great. They're scoring goals. I think Jimenez has been a really nice story so far, but they're conceding goals by the bucket. And we understand who's coming in. We understand that in July, and he'll obviously add to the attack. But the big question marks seem to be at the back. Are the reinforcements coming? We keep hearing about certain names, obviously, but what are you hearing right now?
Yeah, so according to multiple people that I've spoken to with knowledge of the situation, Domenico Crescito will be joining Toronto FC this summer. This Genoa, let me correct myself the way I say that, Genoa, the defender, versatile, former Italian international, 35 years old though. He'll be joining TFC's backline in hopes of kind of reinforcing that. He's going to help Lorenzo Insigne as well, kind of be acclimated to this.
Because they're tight, right? They're close.
They're very good friends.
Is this a package deal? Was it like you bring me over, you bring my mate over as well?
Yeah, that's kind of what I've been hearing. Is it is a package deal, and exactly, they're really good friends away from the field, and we'll see kind of how this works out. Because is he the answer to sort of Toronto FC's struggles defensively? TFC, when you look at expected goals against, they're second last in the league in terms of the number that they're expected to concede. They've also conceded the second most goals in the league as well. So that kind of adds up there. And they're just not where they want to be at all defensively. I don't think Carlos Salcedo has kind of lived up to expectations as a DP. Mm-hmm. And the hope is adding another veteran who's played at Juventus, veteran who's played with the Italian national team, a guy who's well-seasoned and still a very good footballer. Does he help kind of move the needle here?
And let's not kid ourselves, he is a good footballer. He's coming off a really good season. He's beloved at Genoa, and he's not that far removed from being an Italian international, but he is 35, right? And for a fullback, that's quite old. Do you see him changing position at Toronto FC?
Yeah, so I see him more as a center back, to be honest with you. I think he's versatile. He can play either left back or center back. But I know Bob Bradley has been open to playing in a back three at least. Mm-hmm. And he's slotting next to guys like Shane O'Neill and Carlos Salcedo. All of a sudden, that looks like a little bit more of an intriguing back line than what they've been throwing out so far this season. So we'll kind of see the way that Bob Bradley does choose to use Crescito. But if they do decide to throw him on the left, he'll have that partnership there with Insigne. So maybe that becomes a little bit more lethal than a Luca Petrasso right now and Jaden Nelson on the left-hand side.
When they side a guy like Crescito, obviously from a footballing standpoint, you see why it makes sense. But also off the field, this is a young TFC team. A player like Jaquil Marshall-Ruddy, for example, learning the fullback role. It's not his natural position. I know he plays a different side to Crescito, but what does this mean for a player like Marshall Ruddy, who has got some speculation around his future right now as well?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Crescito's the captain at Genoa. This is a team that needed leadership coming through its doors, especially after what went on last season. So I think that was very important in terms of the character of this player coming in. And you mentioned Marshall Rudy. I mean, that's the hope is that he learns from Crescito, right? Especially as he's thrown into kind of a new position, adjusting to a new position. There haven't been many veterans at the club that have been there to help Marshall Rudy throughout this process. You had Justin Morrow, who's still there behind the scenes, and Marshall Rudy's talked about the way that he's given him tips, and I think Crescito is just a different caliber, I'd say, based on his experience in terms of what he can offer from that. So I'd say hopefully Marshall Rudy latches onto him and he learns a lot from a guy like Crescito.
Well, at the same time, though, a lot of these young players, I know Ruddy in particular, do have aspirations one day to play in Europe, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sure they'll be drilling the veterans like Crescito for footballing advice, but also, what's it like playing in the Serie A? What does your gut tell you about Marshall Ruddy and his long-term future? There's a lot of speculation out there.
For sure. And, of course, his agent came out and said that Bill Manning was asking for $20 million for the player, which is an enormous transfer. That's Alphonso Davies level, right? The value that he's asking for there. We know that his pedigree, it's here. He's good enough to play European football. He has an opportunity in front of him these next couple of months to showcase that. Now, I don't know if Bill Manning actually wants $20 million for Marshall Ruddy, or if that's kind of a ploy to get maybe $10 million for the player. But Marshall Ruddy is eventually going to make his way over to Europe. The one problem with that is it's not like he has TFC in a bit of a stranglehold here. I think TFC has leverage in this situation because Marshall Ruddy is actually signed to a long-term contract with the club. And the ball's kind of in their court what they decide to do with him. I know when he was signed, the intention was to get him overseas as quickly as possible. I wonder at all if that sort of changed here.
It's so difficult, right? Young players understand why they sign long-term contracts, but they must also understand that when their aspirations and ambitions become greater than perhaps MLS, they are still locked in at these clubs. And that's when you get animosity at some clubs between agents, players, and the club itself. But a lot of TFC moving parts right now. It's going to be a fun summer, though. Like I said, they're still in the hunt. And we said last time we spoke, if they just stay in the hunt until July, when the reinforcements come, then anything can happen. We see it every year in MLS, and it should make for a fascinating summer and maybe a fascinating fall as well. I forget what the odds are now for TFC to go all the way.
Plus 6,500.
Well, there you go. I think that might speak for itself. But still, Lorenzo Insigne, hope you know what you're getting yourself into because a lot of expectation will be resting on your shoulders. Mikey, great job as always. Read this guy on theparleh.com whenever you get a chance. Tons of scoops, including one today with Crescito. Thanks.
Cheers, James.